All right, everyone, and welcome to Parenting During the Pandemic. Right now, we're kicking off with talking about the support versus stress in your life. So, if you want to think about what is your top parenting stress right now, and what's the top area of support? All right, so the goal is to have that greater incoming support than stress. And to remember, you are the best gift your children can ever have. Anything you could ever buy or give your children, nothing surpasses you as their parent. So during this pandemic, and as we think about transitioning back to school, how can you really care for yourself like the gift you are? Because you are the structure and the foundation for your happy home and for this back to school time. So as you're scheduling in activities for your children, usually what we have on the calendar is going to happen. And when our kids enroll in activities or they have school events, we usually don't think about missing them. So I want you to think about activities where you give back to yourself or time to care for yourself. Start putting that on the calendar and give it at least equal importance to your children's activities, okay? I also hope that when you realize how essential support is to the quality of your parenting, that you'll be open to receiving more support, to celebrating the support that's already in your life, and to create new networks of support, even if they're in the virtual space during this pandemic time. Okay? As we're thinking about increasing your support, an important part of this is decreasing your stress. And we can do that. There's a lot of stressors that we cannot control right now. So thinking about the outside stress in your life that you can control. What can you start to say no to? What is non-essential? What can you do less of? And what can you let go of altogether? Brene Brown in her research said that the most compassionate people also have the most well-defined and well-respected boundaries. As a parent, if we want to be more compassionate, then we probably need some more boundaries, okay? And right now we're looking at that with your schedule and thinking about back to school. So what's one thing that you can do, or maybe one thing you can not do, one thing you can say no to or let go of to decrease your stress? So again, this could be doing less. It could be saying no to friends or family's requests that just aren't possible for you because they're going to override your boundaries. You can let go of non-essentials, lower expectations for yourself and your children, and we're going to talk more about that. Really focus on and prioritizing your basic needs, making sure that meals and hydration and quality time are in place in your family, and to focus on that positive relationship. And a big part of that may be developing boundaries, okay? So I'd love for you to think about yourself and reflect on, as we're coming into this back to school, what's one thing you can do less of, one thing you can let go of? Or maybe it's something you want to do, like focusing on your basic needs. And if you want to share that in the chat, we can use the chat function as well. Okay? What is going to be your one focus area to decrease stress, something you do have control over, and saying no or letting it go? Okay? From that place, really thinking about connection is the foundation for cooperation in your home. In fact, in positive discipline, we say that connection actually equals cooperation. So let's break that down a little bit. The way we define connection is when your everyday self is connected to your highest self or your best place as a parent. So you've got your everyday self really in connection with your best place. Now, from a brain science perspective, that means that your prefrontal cortex, which is the CEO of your brain, also known as executive function, and it's right here in your forehead, it's engaged and running the show, okay? To keep in mind that while connection is our goal and it's a muscle that can be strengthened, that ruptures in connection, especially during times of high stress, they're always going to be part of the human experience. You're never going to be a perfect parent because then you would be a parenting robot, and we don't want that, right? So those imperfections and those ruptures in connection, they're always going to be part of the human experience, and they're designed to help us learn and grow. From that, we hear a lot about self-regulation for kids, but especially those of us with younger children, self-regulation isn't the goal. It's not realistic developmentally, but co-regulation. So us modeling regulation and holding the container for regulation with our children, that is the goal. Okay, and again, that connection is a muscle you can develop over time. If you want to learn more about the brain science of connection, I highly recommend the book Parenting from the Inside Out by Dr. Dan Siegel. Okay, so my mentor in positive discipline says attention is a poor substitute for connection. In that, if your children have unmet connection needs, they will usually go into that negative attention-seeking behavior. Okay, and we're also going to talk about co-regulation in terms of the sponge brain and mirror neurons. Okay, so here's some brain science. If you think about your brain, we're going to say that this is your brain, which is fully developed by ages somewhere between 21 and 25. Now, our brains can change throughout the lifespan, but they are fully developed at that time. Now, for our children's brains, part of that co-regulation, what does it exactly look like? It looks like that our children are literally sponging off of our brains to develop their brains, okay? And that's really what the co-regulation looks like. I like to think of it as like we're a glass of, say, water or liquid, and then our children's brains actually just sit in that container. That's really what it looks like. And that's why focusing on decreasing your stress levels and meeting your basic needs is the number one. That's the brain science of why support for you is so essential as a parent. Okay? Also, we have mirror neurons, and mirror neurons are a brain cell that reacts both when a particular action is performed and when it's only observed. So here's the other reason support for ourselves is so important. So we can show up in a place of connection throughout as many moments of daily life as we can. Because the reality is, whatever behavior we have, our children, because of the mirror neurons, they're reflecting, they're thinking, their brain is reading that as their own behavior, okay? So when we model calm and composure, our children are like, I'm calm and composed. When we react, as we all do during those ruptures in connection, in anger or frustration, that usually intensifies our children's negative behavior, whether they shut down or they react in frustration. And that's due to the mirror neurons and to the sponge brain, okay? I call this the power of caregiving, but also the responsibility. And remember, the goal is not to become perfect. The goal is to increase your support. Okay, now what can happen with that? We've said attention is a poor substitute for connection. Well, what is a cycle that probably all of us relate to at some point during this pandemic is that our children have challenging behavior. Now, it may be developmentally appropriate, but it's still challenging. And either we're stressed, we don't have enough support, or maybe we don't have enough tools and we literally don't know how to respond to our kids' challenging behavior. Well, when that happens, we respond negatively. Usually we either shut down or we yell. And that enables our children's behavior, okay? And from that, our children's negative behavior actually intensifies. And then, of course, especially when we're stressed, our negative behavior intensifies. From that place, we can get into this negative feedback loop and behavior pattern with our children, which, if it goes on throughout our children's entire childhood, then that can become part of their regular behavior patterns and their character traits. So everything I do is to help parents prevent negative feedback loops and behavior patterns, and also to get you out of negative feedback loops and behavior patterns. And please know it's never too late with your children to change the pattern, okay? Now, what we're going to talk about is if we want to transform this negative feedback loop and negative attention seeking behavior, the number one way to do that is to focus on quality time, which is positive relationship connection, okay? Think about human relationship. It's actually a basic human need, just like food, water, and shelter. And our children need quality time with us to grow their brains, right? Because of that sponge brain. Now, the other important thing about quality time is I want you to enjoy your children. You work so hard, tirelessly, to raise your kids. And it's really important that you also enjoy what cool people they are, okay? The other benefit of quality time is it's going to interrupt negative behavior cycles, okay? I can't guarantee it, but if you're in a negative feedback loop or behavior pattern, sometimes parents have simply introduced quality time with their kids, and the negative behavior feedback loop is transformed on its own, okay? A lot of times too, that negative attention seeking behavior goes away. And I would say if you're looking to make a change to your screen time consumption in your family, this connection is the first part of it, okay? So quality time with children, the requirements are a little different from a positive discipline perspective. And I also want to acknowledge that you might be thinking of more time with my kids. I'm spending all the time with my children every day. And so the quality time guidelines are a little bit different, okay? This is where you enter into your children's world. You follow their lead and play. Hide your phone or put it away, and you set a timer. During this pandemic, parents are telling me it's really about 30 minutes of quality time a day. Sometimes parents even tell me they need 2 chunks of that 30 minutes a day, or several smaller touch points throughout the day. You want to focus on doing an activity that you enjoy and well, and that isn't super competitive, has low frustration levels. And then you just slow down and enter your children's world and really enjoy them. So with some of you have young children, right? So with the 5 and the 2-year-olds, literally most of the time, all you have to do is just sit on the floor with them and just like look at them and enjoy their sweet smiles, laugh at their jokes and when they laugh, and enjoy what they're enjoying developmentally at this time in their lives. Now, that also and also with a 4-year-old, okay? With the 10 and definitely with the 18-year-old, usually has to be a little more strategic in that you really want to let them pick the activity, and that's when you're entering into their world. So I recommend that you do go outside of the box of what you usually enjoy doing to connect with your tween and teen. But the same principles, just focus on listening to them and to enjoying them. Like look at their cool smiles and what they're into, okay? And ensuring your children's emotional cups are full is also going to make your work time. So I don't know how many people are working from home as well, but if you want to think about, that's when the touch points can be helpful. So you have strategic times during the day where you're connecting, filling the emotional cup, and then getting some work done. Okay. So what I'd love to hear is what are your favorite quality time activities already? Let's bring those to the forefront of what you and your kids already enjoy doing together. Oh, and I didn't say this, but ideally it's media free. I definitely like the under 10, it should definitely, be media free. But with the older kids, it might be fun for you to connect in their world, maybe with what they're interested in watching or also playing. So let's hear, what are your favorite quality time activities? What are the challenges to quality time in your family? Okay. It could be just your emotional availability. It's hard to like do it and make it happen. It could also be some kids, it's like their emotional cups are never full. They're never satisfied. Okay. And then I want you to start thinking about the logistics. Like, when is the best time for quality time throughout your day based on your schedule? This summer, and then also thinking about back to school. What are you going to do? Where is it going to happen? How? And just get some of those logistics in place. If it's helpful to use the chat function, please do. Great, and let's just see, I'll give you, oh, yay, welcome. It's great to see you. Okay, a 5.5-year-old and a 2-year-old. Dr. Laura Markham, which I do want to do a little plug for Dr. Laura Markham. If you're not familiar with her AHA Parenting website, she has all the topics organized by age and developmental stage. And honestly, it's like an encyclopedia of parenting support. Roughhousing and laughter for quality time. Thank you. And we're going to talk about play as a discipline tool. So that's going to piggyback really nicely. Pillow fights, or my son will try and blow us over with his breath. Okay. And especially if you have kids who are physically orientated, that was one thing I had to go out of the box with my 11-year-old son and do pillow fights and really connect through the physical. A lot can come up for parents around that, so we want to honor that, but if you feel comfortable, please do try that out, okay? And yeah, just honoring some of the stressors is like being patient, being parent, friend, playmate, teacher, and everything in between for a 6-year-old, and feeling like I'm failing at all of those roles because of COVID isolation. Yes, and I want to honor that, but like, yes, that's like 5 different jobs, right? That parents are all expected to do. And its expectations are really through the roof right now, okay? Thank you so much for sharing, okay? If anyone else wants to pop in about quality time, we're gonna dive in now to the positive parenting tools that are the foundation for everything that you'll do with your children and for preventing and transforming parenting challenges. Okay, so these are the foundational tools I share in my community. So connection is quality time. Okay, again, the importance of getting that time in to prevent and transform behavioral challenges. Okay. The next tool that we're going to talk about, which I want to share this first, okay? I've been floored this summer, the results parents have experienced when you start communicating clearly what you expect from your children and making sure they actually hear you and they mentally understand all the words, okay? A lot of times, especially when we are doing those 5 or 6 roles during this COVID time, there's so much going on in our head, but we're actually not telling our children what the expectations are. So if you feel like you're struggling with transitions, your children don't listen until you yell at them, that you're resorting to threats, consequences, or rewards incentives, that you tend to, because you're so busy doing so much, you're barking orders and screaming across the room, that you expect your children to operate off of your adult priorities. And so it's really important that we teach our children, right? all the things they need to do in a day. Yet, we want to remember that those are adult priorities based on adult timelines and to-do lists. So recognizing as we do teaching that we want to bridge the gap because our children, their world is play. That's their priority, is enjoying the moment, okay? So if we're exclusively expecting our children to operate off of our adult priorities, then that's something that we can explore and support you on tonight, okay? Do you also feel like you actually might confuse not listening? Like, my kids are defiant, they're not listening, they're not cooperating, but actually your children aren't even hearing you. They're like physically they're in such their own world that they're not, what you're saying is not even registering with them. Okay, this is a great tool. It's something that I remind myself and parents in my community all the time, to make sure that you have the connection in communication piece in place to facilitate cooperation. And this is from Conscious Discipline. So just taking a deep breath when it's time, say, for your children to transition. You take that deep breath and you go to where your children are. You get on their eye level. You include positive physical touch. Those of you that have little ones, you'll put your kids on your lap, put your arm around them, hold their hand, give a hug. For older kids, it might be more like hand on the shoulder, or doing a little like playful, like kind of roughhousing, okay? Just like if it's fun and you want to follow your tween or teen's cues, if they're, they're kind of laughing or rolling their eyes at you, okay? Respecting their boundaries, but including that positive physical touch. And then to be really present with your child, put your phone away, right? It's nearly impossible for our kids to cooperate with us when we're on our phone. And then focus on what you'd like to see happening, okay? And then honoring where your child is at emotionally, and maybe they have some connection needs, or maybe they're hungry or thirsty or tired, okay? So just really being present with where your child's at without your phone, and getting a mental picture of what you expect your child to do. Now, from that place, you would just share the expectation in simple words like clothes, toothbrush, be kind. If you want to say, please say it like this if they're using a tone of voice that's disrespectful, okay? And then using humor, play, or smiles. And it can be something as simple as telling a funny joke after, saying it in a funny voice, singing it like a song, or even just smiling and laughing together after, okay? So like shoes, making up a song. And so the playful element doesn't have to be anything that's super taxing on you, okay? We're going to talk about the power of play in a little bit. So what I'd love to hear is, again, I want you to really trust in the power of clear communication and expectations to transform some of the behavior challenges in your home, okay? So I know one dad this summer, working from home, the child kept interrupting him, and he just let her know in that connected way that when I'm working, you can play this and that. And then I think that they'd set a timer. When the timer goes off, I'll be ready for you again. Okay? So think about how you can communicate clearly to your children what the expectations are, especially around back to school expectations, and then bringing in this connection piece. Okay? Do you have can I ask any questions about connection and communication, like a time of day or a behavioral challenge that you think it would be helpful? And then how you're already using this tool at home. I know, and if you've worked with me before, like, do you feel like this is at the forefront? I know, again, myself, I have to always remind myself of this tool. Okay, so anything you'd like to share about using this tool or challenges to using this tool, you can pop that in the comments. Okay. So as we're moving on with the parenting tools, there is going to be one parenting tool. It's the only one I know of that's going to work 80 to 99% of the time. And can you guess what that is? The parenting tool, only one I can think of that I can guarantee that it's going to work 80 to 99% of the time. And that is using play as a discipline tool, okay? Play is the only tool that's going to consistently and effectively maintain connection between you and your kids so they can cooperate with you. And the 80 to, so that would be the 1 to 20% of the time that this tool might not work. That's when your children have unmet basic needs, okay? We get to the point that our 5-year-old is like a tightly wound top and is about to explode, and nothing seems to calm him down. Just crazy energy. Suggestions? It is really driving us crazy. I try to keep my calm, but it's really hard. Yeah, and what I want to say to that, the brain science, why it's hard. Our children have mirror neurons with us, but we also have mirror neurons with our children. So if you have a 5-year-old, and how many people can relate to this, who's wound up like a tightly wound top and is about to explode, then we can start feeling like that's us as well. So I just want to share that to honor that's a really challenging situation to be in. And so because you're already using the play, I guess my question is there's 2 ways that you can go. Sometimes we want to channel that energy and we want to create a safe container for that quote explosion, but we want it to be positive. So I wonder, is your 5-year-old at that point? Could you channel it into some roughhouse, or would that result in a meltdown or a temper tantrum? Okay. The other option is to do something that is calming. But I will share that most kids, if they're wired this way, that they need the positive outlet to express it. So I guess that's what I would like to ask you. Is there anything that's coming to mind that your child could do to express the energy in a safe way? And then remember that you're going to be the emotional container for that. So you'll have to model it and you'll have to provide the emotional support for him. Okay. So that's a lot. It's a lot of what we're doing in supporting our kids. It's pretty complex and there's a lot of steps. Okay. I try to think of ways, but it's so hard in the moment. Okay. What I'd love your family to do is we're going to talk about how to engage our children in the problem solving, and that might be the ticket, okay? And it's definitely hard in the moment to think of ways to support, but I wonder if anything's coming to mind right now, okay? So let's talk about play. So we use play to maintain the connection and teach life skills. Play is the #1 way that children learn, okay? Play is the world of our children. And our job as parents is to discipline our children. I always thought discipline meant to punish, but discipline actually means to teach. So if our children, their job is to learn, and their #1 way they learn is through play, then our job as parents is to use play as our #1 discipline tool, because that's the way our children learn most effectively. The other benefit, and why I want you to open the door to using play as a discipline tool, play is a tool that's actually going to soothe your stress levels as a parent and ultimately conserve your energy, okay? And I want to share that last point because some of you may feel like, yeah, I'm naturally a playful parent, but most of us don't feel that way. Most of us have to unlock our play, okay? So tools of play, very simple. Again, making it a song. Okay, you can use this for those of us with older children. Instead of nagging, just turn the reminder into a song. For younger kids, so 5 and under, their entire world is play. And when you use these tools, unless they're tired or hungry, it's almost like from a brain science perspective, when we use a tool of play with young children, they literally can't help but cooperate because play is the way their brains are wired to learn. And that's why there's the, call for definitely make sure we stay at a play focus on early childhood. Okay. You could also say it in a silly voice. If you feel like you're going to go into yelling something, you can try and blah, 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 say it in a silly voice, or just make a silly sound. Okay. I had one mom who, when her kids were fighting, she used to, and she had tweens, she would used to just say, it's getting so hot in here, I'm gonna pass out. So really just being over the top and exaggerating. And again, by you doing that, as long as you're not being sarcastic, it's going to soothe your stress levels as well. Okay. With young kids, I know some parents have actually made up a diaper changing song when potty training was a challenge, okay, and changing a diaper. Simply using a timer. It doesn't have to be competitive, but some kids just love to set a timer. Let's see if we can get this done in 2 minutes, and then you're off and you're on your way, okay? Other families have had a favorite stuffed animal do the teaching or say what needs to happen, particularly with morning and evening routines. Another mom had great success when at bedtime, her full of power struggles at bedtime. So she just had, she turned into a cat at bedtime and went through the bedtime routine like a kitty. And again, you're going to probably face your adult resistance to doing this. But when you see how effective it is, how it feels good to use play, and how it results in cooperation with your children, then you'll be much more inspired to use play. I had to really talk myself into it as well. And sometimes simply acting out the behavior. So for this, with that spun energy, you could simply pretend like, oh, I'm feeling so spun. And then ask and just act it out again. You want to do it in a judgment-free way, supportive way. Make sure that we're in a calm place when we do it. And then ask your son to help. What could I do instead? What would help me feel better? Okay. And then also simply using action words to model the behavior. So like brushing teeth, kind hands, time for your schoolwork, and adding in those action words. That's also the way that children's brains work. Okay? So I'd love to hear, what is your number one behavioral challenge in your family? And if you're comfortable sharing that in the chat, we can also wait till we stop the recording. And then if you want to share now though, or also when we go into the group coaching for those of us who are live, we can brainstorm how we can begin to use the tools of play. So what I'd love you to do right now is just think about your number one behavioral challenge going into the fall season. And then when we open up for coaching support, we'll support you in that, okay? All right, so as we're talking about these tools of connection, the quality time, the connection in communication, and the play, what we're really trying to help you do is shift from reactive to proactive. Everything in positive parenting, we work to prevent behavioral challenges through teaching and to be proactive, okay? And why is that? Well, we want to discipline or do that teaching in a calm and connected moment. And why is that? Well, discipline, as we talked about, means to teach. And teaching and learning happen in moments of connection, right? You and your kids need your executive function, that prefrontal cortex, that connection to your highest self, in order to effectively teach and effectively learn. In those upsetting moments of behavioral challenges, teaching and learning simply aren't possible, because if you're upset and your kids are upset, you don't have access to the teaching and learning parts of your brain. So just take the pressure off yourselves now, that you're going to be brilliant in those moments of high stress, like you were sharing about that exploding behavior. And it's like, in the moment. That's why, because it's just it's triggering in those moments. It's upsetting, and then it's stressful, and then we lose parts that access to the teaching and learning parts of our brains. I want you to know that's a physiological response. It's not a character flaw and anyone's fault. So instead of trying to discipline in the moment when negative behavior is happening, see how you can focus instead on staying calm and focus on keeping everyone safe. Then we want to switch the discipline and the teaching to calm and connected moments. This is a moment when basic needs are met, when you can actually be proactive and preventative. The behavior is not happening, so you're not going to be reactive. You can come from a strength-based place. You can embody kindness and firmness at the same time, which our children need. You can also model calm and empowered leadership, so you maximize the positive potential of the sponge brain and the mirror neurons. And from that place of the calm and connected moment, you can focus on developing solutions and solving problems instead of resorting to consequences or rewards. And from that, you create the foundation for lasting learning and problem solving. Okay, so literally to use a calm and connected moment, you're gonna first, and hopefully you can do this tonight, right? You've identified that top behavioral challenge, something you know you're gonna encounter again. And then you're just gonna pick a time of day when everyone's basic needs are met and you feel calm as a parent and you feel connected to your kids, okay? Then from that place, you're just gonna state neutrally what happened or what has been happening without judgment or good or bad. It just is. So I notice right now, it's hard for you to wait patiently. I'm noticing right now that you get really, all your emotions get spun up and it's like you're gonna explode. And then you just ask your kids for their input. So, what could we do differently instead? What would help you in that moment? Okay. And we use what's called curiosity questions, which start with what or how. What happens next? So, like if you're working on the morning routine, so what happens in the morning routine? And then how can we work together to remember what happens? Okay. Sibling stuff, maybe how can you two work it out? What else do we do in the morning before we do this? Okay. So, this calm and connected moment, I'm using the curiosity question. It can be applied to any behavioral challenge across developmental stages. With younger children, you are going to give them probably more options of choices. Okay? If you ask a child, even in a calm and connected moment, what could we do differently? There's a chance they're going to say, I don't know. And it could be they're just not used to using their muscles, their problem solving muscles this way with you. It's just going to take practice. Again, you'll just give them options to choose from. Also, if kids feel like I'm going to get in trouble, then they're not going to respond honestly as well. So all that being said, you want to come to the situation with a few different solutions you could offer your children, okay? And then the goal is to come up with a solution together and hopefully to practice it, especially with small children. Whatever you decide to do as the solution, if you can act it out. And the power of acting it out is that it creates muscle memory, that the brain, through the practice, it's the same as if your child actually did it when they were supposed to. Okay. So also if you're working on cleaning up, then you can go through, okay, this is what's going to happen. Now, if your children refuse for whatever reason, then you model the behavior, right? If they refuse or they don't want to cooperate, you could come back at a different time and try it. Maybe it's not the time for them. Or just remember, because of the mirror neurons, if you don't react negatively to their refusal or lack of cooperation, and instead you model the behavior, then they're mirror neurons. You're still teaching in that moment, okay? So within that, I'd love for you to, any questions you have about the tools, and then we're going to go ahead and go, yeah, that's true. Yes, it is true. I'm not sure exactly, but it's, you know, this power of the calm and connected moment, okay? So I'd like you to think about what behavioral challenge you want to work on, maybe have some options, some solution options available, and then when's going to probably be this pocket of time where you can talk to your, hey, let's pull this all together into your fall framework. And then we're going to open up for the coaching. And I apologize that the lighting is so bad. I don't know. Yeah, usually there's better lighting at this time of day. Let's pull it all together for your fall framework. Okay. During this fall season, how can you focus on increasing your incoming support and maintaining clear and loving boundaries to decrease your stress levels? It's gonna be stressful this fall. Let's just anticipate it. Anything that is within your control that is causing you stress that you can say no to, I give you permission. I encourage you to do that. It's the best thing you can do for yourselves and for your children. Within that, maintaining that connection with your best self as a parent. When you feel like a good parent, you are a good parent. It's truly that simple. So notice those everyday moments of life when you're like, you know what? I feel like a good parent right now. And you really want to soak that up so you can build upon it. Okay? When you feel like a good parent, that means you're in that place of connection. And you also want to have compassion and grace for yourself when those ruptures in connection happen, because they're going to happen this fall time, and we're going to continue to be imperfect, especially with the high stress level. Give yourself so much grace and compassion. Then the other part of your fall framework is connection equaling cooperation. And I want you to think about quality time, that connection and communication, play, and the calm and connected moment. These are your foundational tools this fall season. Okay? Within that, I invite you either right now, tonight, or sometime in the coming days and weeks to create an overarching theme or goal for your family. I don't want you to get too lofty. Keep it simple. I want it to be realistic and responsive to this very stressful situation we're in, where we're all doing 5 jobs of 5 people at once, okay? This is not the time to have grandiose goals or themes, okay? I was just working on a coaching call with one parent, and her theme is just going to be love of learning. Okay, so that's her overarching theme. That's what she wants to stay connected to. When this pandemic started, to give you an idea of lowering expectations, my overarching theme and my goal was not to yell at my son. And I actually said, because it made me laugh, and not to freak out on my son. And I also said, really what that meant is maintaining positive relationship connection. So for you, what's going to be kind of your guiding force, your overall theme, or your goal? And let's not think about the whole school year, because that's overwhelming. Just this fall season. And if you want to share that in the chat, I invite you to. It might also be something that you want to talk to people about, or do some doodling or writing about, okay? But I want you to think about creating this overarching theme or goal that's responsive and realistic in terms of this very stressful situation we're all in, okay? From that, it is focusing on connection, right? Because when we're in that place of disconnect, and our kids are in a place of disconnect, remember, they don't have access to their learning brains or their thinking brains. And so that goes for teaching life skills and working through behavior challenges, but it also goes through academics, okay? So this fall season, as your framework, prioritizing connection with yourself, that your children are going to sponge off of and then have connection and quality time with them. If the learning is cooperative and you've got the connection in place, then you're going to focus on academics. I want to give you permission to focus less on academics. And I know that each family is different, and that brings up different things for different families. But I was just at my son's annual doctor's appointment, and he said, and his pediatrician said, I wish this year that everyone could just let up on the academics. And that was a pediatrician sharing that. So I want to share that with you. Within that, mental health and emotional well-being in families has to be our number one priority. And that can mean lowering expectations and letting go, even if it's for a bit, even if it's for that day. And I want to just, remind you without worrying you, but I do want it to be on the forefront of all of our minds that academics without the connection piece in place, academics that are stressful, is going to cause mental distress in our children. So let mental health and emotional well-being be our primary focus area. And from that place, we'll build academics on top of that. The other thing that my son's pediatrician said is, if everyone's just going to kind of be behind a year, everyone's going to be at the same place, right? So we want to do whatever we can to focus on connection, and from that place, build the foundation of academics, okay? So think about what's your goal or theme for fall 2020. And what I recommend is that you write it out on a piece of paper, okay? And then from that, your goal or theme, then you're gonna look at like bucket list items that will go into the fall season. What are the things you wanna make sure happen this fall, okay? And they could be connection quality time activities, whatever's possible with social distancing, right? Then you're gonna look at the weekly and the daily. And I want you to think of these as categories. They might be reading together. It might be lunch. It might be outdoor time every day. It might be weekly or daily art, okay? And I just want you to loosely think about these sub-themes, these categories that hopefully all affirm your goal or theme for fall 2020, okay? From that place, you can let go of items that don't connect to your theme, okay, or that are gonna cause unnecessary stress. And then you can create a visual for your family, something that everyone can see. You can also involve your children in this process. And you can also schedule it in for those of us who are calendar type, okay? I am going to be offering a back to school that's going to focus like exclusively on this process, but I wanted to give you this overview. I will also, Teresa will have in West Slope Library will have the replay, and I'll also send the slides so you can go back and revisit this. You're also welcome to screenshot anything that's helpful, okay? Thinking about that theme and then your bucket list subcategories rather than like specifics right now, okay? Because we still have some time to prepare, but this will get your framework in place, okay? So as a community tonight, I hope that we've helped you just know you're not alone in navigating these challenging times and to begin to set some realistic goals for you and your children. To developing parenting practices based on connection that align with your parenting goals and values, to begin to create the foundation for your fall structure, which really focuses on mental health and emotional well-being in your family. I hope that you've been able to take some simple and effective tools home with you. And so overall, you can facilitate more cooperation and fun in your home and make your life easier and more enjoyable as a busy parent who's doing the jobs of 5 people right now, okay? So I invite you to stay connected. You are not alone, and community support is going to be essential during this time. I invite you to sign up. You can message me your email, or you can go to my website, meganbarella.com, and sign up for my weekly positive parenting tools and inspiration email. Again, chat me your email address and I can add you. I also have a Parenting for the Next Generation Facebook group. And always when I do a free library talk, I invite you to schedule. Say there was a lot of information today and you want to focus in on one area, get some individualized support. Please do stay on for the group coaching. And I also always offer library families schedule a free 30-minute positive parenting breakthrough session with me. Here's what my website looks like and where you can schedule that session. Okay, so meganbarella.com. And then I also invite you to the Parenting for the Next Generation Facebook group. And I offer as many free trainings and support throughout the year as possible. Okay, I think that, thank you so much everyone for joining tonight. And I am gonna see, thank you everyone. And if you're watching the replay, thank you so much for being here. And I'm wishing you and your family all the best. And may you have the support and access to the tools to create a foundation of connection and emotional well-being and mental health in your family this fall season. And just know you have a community behind you supporting you every step of the way. Take good care, everyone.